Imagine standing on what feels like just absolutely solid ground.
Right.
You're completely secure, you're well-informed, your finances look stable, your schedule is perfectly managed, you feel completely in control.
Yeah, you got it all together.
Exactly. But then, you look closely at the floorboards and you realize you're actually standing on a trapdoor.
Oh, wow.
And underneath, totally out of sight, the iron hinges are quietly rusting away.
That is, yeah, that's a terrifying image.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are thrilled you're joining us. Today, we're talking about that exact feeling, the illusion of control, and what happens when comfort breeds a really dangerous lack of awareness.
It is a terrifying realization when the very thing you've placed all your security in, turns out to be structurally compromised.
Right.
We build these elaborate facades of security around our careers or our social standing or even just our personal routines. And we convince ourselves that because the surface looks polished, the foundation must be secure.
So true. And to figure out how to survive that trapdoor realization, and I guess more importantly, how to build something that actually lasts, we are examining an ancient text today.
Yes.
Specifically, we're looking at the 28th chapter of the biblical book of Isaiah. Our mission for this deep dive is to extract the psychological and structural framework presented in this text.
Which is incredibly rich, by the way.
It really is. Now, on the surface, this document reads like a severe historical warning to arrogant ancient leaders, but we are going to look at the historical context to understand the mechanics of the text and then explore its hard-hitting applications to modern life.
Right, because human nature hasn't changed.
Exactly. We'll look at how this ancient wisdom frames the idea of building an unshakable foundation and how, according to the text, that process is intended to actually strengthen trust and our relationship with God today. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, to understand the text, we really have to establish the stakes these people were facing.
Okay.
The chapter kicks off by condemning what it calls the crown of pride and the drunkards of Ephraim.
The drunkards of Ephraim.
Yeah. Now, Ephraim was a term used for the northern kingdom of Israel at the time. They were wealthy, they were positioned in this really fertile valley, and they were, frankly, intoxicated by their own success.
Wow.
But the text describes their glorious beauty as a fading flower. They were living in a temporary spring, completely oblivious to the approaching winter.
And the imagery there is just incredibly graphic. I mean, the text talks about leaders who are overcome with wine to the point where their tables are full of vomit and filthiness.
Yeah, it's visceral.
There is no clean place left anywhere. It's painting a picture of a ruling class that has just completely lost its senses.
Right.
But the real problem isn't just their partying, is it? It's what they do in response to a massive geopolitical threat.
Right. The historical reality here is that a massive, ruthless invading army, the Assyrian Empire, is sweeping across the landscape.
Which is terrifying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The text refers to this invasion as an overflowing scourge.
Right.
Basically a destructive flash flood. And how do the leaders in Jerusalem, the capital of the southern kingdom, respond to this impending doom?
Yeah, what do they do?
The text claims they actually boast about making a covenant with death and an agreement with hell.
Which, sounds like something out of a fantasy novel.
It does.
But in reality, they were making these flimsy backroom political alliances. They were trying to strike a secret treaty with Egypt to protect them from Assyria. They actually believed that when this overflowing scourge passed through, they were going to be completely safe because they had made lies their refuge.
What's fascinating here is the sheer power of cognitive dissonance.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these leaders are facing an existential threat. Acknowledging that threat would require them to radically change their behavior, fortify their city, and perhaps admit their vulnerability.
Which nobody wants to do.
No, that is terrifying and expensive. A backroom deal with Egypt, on the other hand, provides immediate psychological relief. It's a comfortable lie. The text is masterfully illustrating a core psychological theme. Human beings will often choose a comfortable delusion over a demanding reality. Confidence without discipline leads directly to collapse.
That makes so much sense. And Isaiah gives us this brilliant, almost comical visual to describe their so-called solution.
I love this part.
He says, the bed is shorter than that a man can stretch himself on it, and the covering narrower than that he can wrap himself in it.
It's just so relatable.
Just picture that. You are exhausted. You try to go to sleep, but you're in a toddler's bed trying to keep warm with a doll-sized blanket.
Yeah.
Your feet are hanging off the edge. You're freezing, and yet you're shivering there, telling yourself, perfect comfort. I have solved the problem.
It remains a perfect, enduring metaphor for modern quick fixes.
It really does.
We apply the short bed strategy constantly in our own lives when we treat the symptoms of a deep problem while deliberately ignoring the underlying disease.
I look at modern corporate culture, or even just our personal habits.
Oh,
We scroll on our phones for 4 hours to cure deep-seated loneliness. Or we take out a high-interest credit card to pay off the minimum balance on another high-interest credit card.
Yes.
We're literally slapping a tiny blanket on a freezing body.
that's exactly it.
But let's look at the mechanics of that. Why is human nature so deeply wired to default to these ridiculous short bed solutions? I mean, why do our brains prefer the toddler bed over just fixing the actual problem and building a proper piece of furniture?
Well, because building a proper piece of furniture takes time, labor, and an admission that you currently don't have a place to sleep.
Oh, that's good.
Right. When you accept a short bed solution, you get immediate relief from the anxiety of having to change. The human brain is wired to prioritize short-term comfort over long-term stability.
Interesting.
In comfortable seasons, our awareness just drifts. Maintaining discipline when things are seemingly going well takes intentional, exhausting effort.
Yeah, nobody wants to do that.
Exactly.
Literally.
These ancient leaders rejected uncomfortable truths because accepting them would mean dismantling their entire power structure and their way of life.
Yeah.
It's much easier to just pull the narrow blanket up to your chin and pretend the cold air isn't there.
So they double down on the delusion. They build an entire national security apparatus on a foundation of sand, just hoping the storm never actually materializes.
Right.
But the text makes it brutally clear that reality eventually comes crashing in. The narrative states that a tempest of hail and a destroying storm is going to sweep away that refuge of lies.
That's inevitable.
The waters will overflow their hiding place, and that flimsy treaty with Egypt, that covenant with death, is going to be disannulled.
The storm does not care about their political maneuvering.
No, it doesn't.
The trapdoor is going to open. And this is the turning point in the text. Since the refuge of lies is doomed to fail the stress test, the narrative introduces the ultimate alternative.
Okay.
It pivots from diagnosing human failure to presenting a framework for divine stability.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The text says, "Behold, I lay in Zion for a foundation, a stone, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation."
Sure foundation.
Yeah. First off, Zion is the biblical term for Jerusalem, the very place these leaders are currently ruling. And the text adds this fascinating detail. "He that believeth shall not make haste."
Right.
Which essentially means whoever builds on this foundation won't panic. They won't be scrambling in terror when the flood hits. It goes on to say that God will apply judgment to the line and righteousness to the plummet.
That architectural terminology is vital.
Okay, unpack that.
A plummet, or a plumb bob,
Right.
is a heavy weight suspended from a string. Builders use it to ensure a vertical wall is perfectly, flawlessly straight.
Oh, okay.
It uses gravity to establish an absolute truth in architecture. You cannot argue with gravity, and you cannot negotiate with a plumb line.
Wow.
The text is arguing that this cornerstone, this divine foundation, is built on absolute, unyielding reality, unlike the refuge of lies, which bends to whatever is politically or personally convenient in the moment.
Wait, I have to push back on this.
Sure.
If I'm doing the agonizing work of aligning my life to this heavy, inflexible plumb line, shouldn't I get a pass on the hurricane?
Oh, that's the classic question.
Right. It feels almost unfair that the person who builds the flimsy house on the sand and the person who does the grueling work of building on the bedrock cornerstone both have to endure the exact same disaster. I mean, does building on this sure foundation actually stop the storm?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the text is explicit. The overflowing scourge still passes through. The hail still falls on the cornerstone.
So no pass on the storm.
No pass.
Yeah.
The framework presented here does not promise a storm-free life. It promises structural integrity amidst the storm.
Okay.
It's addressing a deep human entitlement, the idea that if we do good things, bad things shouldn't happen to us. But pressure is what reveals the truth of what we've built.
Yeah.
The refuge of lies doesn't fail because the storm is uniquely targeted at it.
Yeah.
It fails because its foundation was fundamentally flawed to begin with.
So the cornerstone doesn't divert the floodwaters. It just ensures the house doesn't flood away.
Precisely. The text suggests that building a relationship with God provides that specific kind of stability.
Oh, I see.
The claim is that this deeply strengthens a person's trust. Because when a sudden health crisis or financial ruin or a profound personal loss hits, their confidence isn't based on their fragile circumstances.
Right.
It's based on the unshakable nature of the foundation beneath them. That's why the text says, "He that believeth shall not make haste." You don't panic because your stability isn't dependent on the weather forecast.
Okay, so we've established the problem with the short bid, and we see the text's solution in this unshakable cornerstone.
Right.
But knowing what the foundation is doesn't automatically build the house. The natural next question is the how. How does someone actually transition from a refuge of lies to this bedrock?
Isaiah anticipates that, and the text transitions into a detailed explanation of methodology. It addresses how this alignment is actually constructed in human character.
Yeah, the text asks a really pointed question. Whom shall he teach knowledge? And whom shall he make to understand doctrine? The answer it gives is them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breasts. Basically, it's saying you have to be mature enough to handle solid food. This isn't for people who want to be coddled.
Exactly.
And then it describes the actual learning process in this rhythmic, almost tedious cadence, precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little. It also mentions that instruction will come through stammering lips and another tongue.
It is describing a process that is methodical, gradual, and highly iterative.
I look at that process and honestly, it sounds exhausting.
It is.
I mean, we live in the era of the life hack. We worship overnight success stories. We want the pill that makes us instantly fit or the master class that makes us a millionaire in 30 days.
The quick fix.
Yeah. Incrementally adding here a little, there a little sounds incredibly slow and boring. Why does this ancient text present this repetitive baby step approach as superior to just taking a massive transformative leap?
This raises an important question about the structural mechanics of real growth.
Okay.
Quick leaps are almost always fragile. When you attempt to skip the agonizing process of foundational work, you inevitably end up constructing another short bed.
Oh, wow.
Right. You build a cardboard facade that looks like a brick wall. The text argues that trust in the divine is built step by step. When you go line upon line, you are stress testing every single layer of your understanding and resilience. You make sure layer 1 is fully weight-bearing before you ever stack layer 2 on top of it.
Let's workshop a real-world example of that.
Okay.
Let's say someone realizes their financial life is a complete refuge of lies. They're deep in debt, living way beyond their means. The modern life hack mentality says, put it all into a high-risk crypto trade or find a scheme to get rich by Friday. Make a massive leap.
Yeah, hit the jackpot.
But the line-upon-line method would be entirely different.
The line-upon-line method is cutting up the credit cards.
Ouch.
Yeah. It's budgeting every single dollar, here a little, there a little. It is the slow, unglamorous grind of paying off $20 a week.
Right?
It isn't sexy, and no one is going to make a movie about your budget spreadsheet.
Definitely not.
But 5 years later, that foundation is impervious to the kind of economic hailstorm that would absolutely devastate the person who took the massive, fragile leap.
That brings us right back to the trapdoor metaphor. Line upon line is the process of getting down on your hands and knees and replacing the rusty hinges of that trapdoor with solid iron, one individual screw at a time.
That's a great way to put it.
And what about the phrase stammering lips and another tongue?
That suggests the lessons won't always come in the packaging we prefer.
Oh, interesting.
Sometimes the necessary correction comes from a source we find difficult to understand or even annoying. The leaders in Isaiah's time mocked this slow instruction. They considered themselves highly educated diplomats. They thought they were too advanced for basic line-upon-line teaching from a prophet. Their arrogance in dismissing the slow, deliberate process led directly to their structural collapse.
That sets up the final section of this chapter beautifully. If a person commits to this agonizingly slow line upon line growth, and they accept that the storms are still going to hit their house,
Yeah.
they have to fundamentally trust the one who is directing the construction. They have to trust that the architect isn't just drawing out the process to be cruel.
Exactly.
And the chapter closes with a fascinating shift in metaphor, moving from architecture to agriculture, to explain the exact nature of how God supposedly
It's a
works.
profound shift. The text uses the careful, measured logic of a farmer to illustrate the precision of divine cultivation.
Isaiah poses a rhetorical question. He asks if a plowman just plows endlessly. I mean, does he just rip up the dirt all day forever? No. He breaks the clods, he levels the ground, and then he carefully casts very specific types of seeds.
Mhm.
The text lists them: fitches, cumin, principal wheat, appointed barley, and rye. Each seed goes into its proper place. And then, when it's time for the harvest, the threshing, the method the farmer uses to extract the usable grain from the plant, is entirely customized to this specific crop.
The level of granular detail the text goes into regarding ancient agricultural tools is striking.
It really is. It says, fitches are beaten out with a staff and cumin with a rod. You use lighter tools for the delicate crops. But bread corn, the tough stuff used to make actual sustaining bread, is bruised. However, the farmer doesn't crush it forever with a heavy cartwheel or trample it into dust with horses.
And he knows when to stop.
Yes, he applies pressure, but limits it. The text concludes with the summary of God's character: his God doth instruct him to discretion, and the Lord is wonderful in counsel and excellent in working.
The central argument here is intentionality.
Okay.
The agricultural process involves violence, breaking the ground, beating the crop to get the grain, but it is controlled, purposeful violence.
So what does this all mean? The best modern equivalent I can think of is like a master personal trainer or a world-class physical therapist.
Ooh, I like that.
Right. A terrible trainer just hands the exact same heavy barbell to every single client. They don't look to see if you are a beginner recovering from knee surgery or an Olympic athlete. They just crush you under the weight.
Yeah, that's not helpful.
But a master trainer applies the precise amount of stress required to cause the muscle to adapt and grow without snapping the tendon.
Exactly.
They know when to use a light resistance band and when to load up the heavy iron plates. Does this text imply that the difficulties and pressures we face are perfectly tailored to our specific individual needs?
That is exactly the framework the text is laying out.
Wow.
And it offers a profound psychological reframing of suffering. The threshing, which represents the trials, the corrections, the heavy pressures of life, is presented as purposeful and uniquely calibrated. Just as the wise farmer knows that rolling a heavy cartwheel over delicate cumin would completely obliterate it, the text asserts that God knows precisely how much pressure a person can withstand.
The farmer isn't out to destroy the field, he is trying to yield a harvest.
Yes, this ancient perspective completely shifts how a person views hardship. It moves the view of trials from random, senseless punishment to careful, intentional cultivation.
That is huge.
If someone is going through a season of incredibly heavy threshing, the framework of Isaiah 28 suggests it is not because the farmer is angry and wildly swinging a cartwheel.
Right.
It's because that person is the principal wheat, and that specific heavy pressure is what is structurally required to produce the bread.
And the text argues that understanding this is what actually deepens our trust.
Exactly. It replaces the fear of a chaotic universe with trust in a master builder's discretion. The text claims he knows the crop, he knows the soil, and he knows exactly what tool to use to bring out the necessary growth without causing permanent destruction.
That entirely reframes how a person might approach the hardest days of their life.
It really does.
Let's briefly trace the narrative arc we've explored in this deep dive today. We started by examining the terrifyingly common false security of the ancient leaders, how human nature actively seeks out the short bed of comfortable lies rather than facing terrifying realities.
Right, the trapdoor.
Exactly. From there, we looked at the text's solution, the unshakable precious cornerstone, a foundation built on absolute truth that doesn't prevent the storm, but guarantees stability during it. We explored the tedious but necessary line-upon-line method of constructing that stability. And finally, we unpacked the plowman metaphor, which argues that life's pressures are expertly tailored by a cultivator who is excellent in working.
Bringing all of this directly to you, the listener, the application here is deeply practical. In your comfortable seasons, evaluate your foundations.
Yes.
Examine the things giving you confidence right now. Are they a refuge of lies? Are they short-term fixes treating symptoms while the trapdoor hinges rust beneath you?
Such a good question.
The text challenges us to embrace the slow, incremental work of replacing those rusty hinges here a little, there a little before the storm hits.
The structural insights in this ancient document are just phenomenal. Thank you for walking through the mechanics of that with us today.
It was a pleasure.
And now, turning directly to you, we want to leave you with one final new thought to ponder. We've talked extensively about evaluating your own foundation and your own short bed, but human beings don't live in a vacuum.
No, we don't.
What happens when the people around you, your colleagues, your family members, your community leaders, are all actively building their lives on a refuge of lies?
Oh, wow.
When the storm inevitably hits and their flimsy structures collapse, the debris is going to wash right into your life. How will you apply the slow, deliberate, line-upon-line wisdom of this text to ensure that your cornerstone holds firm, even when the short beds of those around you are swept away?